How do you replace 1950s hi-fi amp capacitors? Imagine hearing the warm, rich sound of a vintage record player and realizing it's coming from a classic 1950s hi-fi amplifier. To keep that magic alive, replacing old capacitors is a key step. Capacitors in these vintage amps are tiny but vital parts that store and releases electrical energy, helping to smooth power flow and shape the audio signal. Over time, especially after many decades, these capacitors can dry out, leak, or fail, causing hum, distortion, or even complete silence. The first step is safety. Always unplug the amplifier from the power source. Some capacitors can hold a charge even after unplugging, so it's wise to discharge them using a resistor or a capacitor discharge tool. This prevents shocks and keeps you safe during the process. Next, gather your tools. You will need a soldering iron, solder sucker or desoldering braid, wire cutters, pliers, and a multimeter. The multimeter helps check voltages and confirms the amp is safe to work on. Open the amplifier chassis carefully using a screwdriver. Once open, look at each capacitor. Note their values, which are measured in microfarads, and their voltage ratings. Pay close attention to polarity, especially with electrolytic capacitors, which have positive and negative leads. Remove the old capacitor by heating the solder joints with your soldering iron. Gently pull or twist the component free once the solder melts. Clean the area with isopropyl alcohol to remove flux residue. When choosing replacements, measure the original parts carefully. Modern capacitors often have different shapes and lead spacings, so match the microfarad value and voltage rating exactly. For can-style capacitors, which house multiple units in one metal case, you can replace the internals with individual modern capacitors. Install the new capacitors by matching their polarity to the original. Solder the leads securely, trim excess wire, and double-check your connections against the schematic. It's best to replace one capacitor at a time, then test the amplifier before moving on to the next. This helps avoid mistakes and makes troubleshooting easier. Some restorers prefer to keep the original can in place for appearance, disconnecting its internal parts and mounting new capacitors inside the chassis. This maintains the vintage look while ensuring reliable operation. Restoring these amps is more than just fixing a component. It's a way to connect with the craftsmanship of the past. These amplifiers were built to last and designed for serviceability, reflecting an era when electronics were meant to be maintained and cherished. Replacing capacitors in a 1950s hi-fi amp brings back the warm, tube-driven sound that many audiophiles love. It's a satisfying process that keeps the legacy of mid-century audio alive, allowing new generations to enjoy the rich audio experience these classic systems offer.